The PlayStation 2, one of the greatest consoles of the modern era, a system still in production 10 years after its launch with a gargantuan games library and a loyal consumer base. But is it also a weapon of mass destruction? You may be shaking your head and sighing that anybody could believe such a thing. But if you're in fact thinking that it all makes sense, I advise you to lean over to your radio, turn down Alex Jones, and listen up closely, because VMX is about to drop some logic on y'all asses. This story broke in the year 2000 and has persisted ever since, despite time and logic saying otherwise. And I have to admit it has a certain mystique to it. The idea of a third-world dictator buying up a bunch of toys to use for some nefarious scheme is almost cartoonish in its nature. It's like something from a comic book. Actually, a similar storyline was used in the superhero comic Invincible, published by Image, in which a pair of supervillains known as the Mauler twins steal game consoles to build a supercomputer for evil purposes. But can this be done in real life? Well, let's take a look at the legend. Let's go back to the year 2000, the Christmas shopping season to be exact. The PS2 had just been released in America and was one of the hottest new gifts. But it faced hardware shortages that left the stock low and demand high, leading to people paying ridiculous amounts of money for one on eBay. Or even worse was the people who managed to get one in stores for retail price and then turned it over on eBay for a profit. Assholes. At the time of its release, it was one of the most anticipated gaming consoles ever. It was the follow-up to the wildly successful PlayStation and the first gaming console to also play DVDs, something which is commonplace now. Though the PS2 faced issues with a lack of a strong library of games at first, it would go on to become the dominant force in the video games console market. So why exactly would a console that everybody wanted be so hard to get? After all, why would a consumer electronics company with a long-standing history like Sony be so foolish as to not make sure that there was enough PS2 consoles to go around? Well, the official word from Sony was manufacturing delays, but it didn't stop people from looking for alternative reasons. Some people believe that the delays and shortages were orchestrated by Sony to add to the mystique of the console. If there's not enough of the console to go around, it makes it seem like demand is higher than it actually is and makes people want one even more. After all, it's basically a form of reverse psychology. If you tell someone that they can't have something, they want it even more. While this line of thinking has some basis in truth, there are other lines of thinking that make me wonder if we're headed down the road to idiocracy. A rumor started that Saddam Hussein, the then president of Iraq, was very interested in getting his hands on the PlayStation 2. But he wasn't just looking for one, he was looking for a lot of them. The actual number of PS2s vary wildly, with some saying it was as few as 100 or so, with others claiming that Saddam Hussein ordered 4,000 PS2 consoles. The method of obtaining them also varied, as some claimed that he imported them directly from Japan, and others claimed that people in America bought them and shipped them to Iraq. And finally, there's the motivations for it. The most innocent of which is simply that Saddam Hussein has a rather large family and circle of friends, and despite his notoriety as a brutish totalitarian tyrant, he was known to treat his family and friends well and was simply Christmas shopping. Well, maybe the people who came up with that idea might have reworded it. He probably wasn't Christmas shopping, guys. There's not a lot of people celebrating that particular holiday in Iraq. That being said, it could simply have been gifts just for the hell of it, and it simply coincided with the PS2's launch in October. Of course, this only works if you believe that he went through the trouble to have people in America buy the machines and ship them to Iraq, and not the other alternative of getting them directly from Japan. The people who claim that Hussein got his PlayStations from Japan sometimes go further, claiming that the system was so advanced at the time that it was classified as a supercomputer and thus fell under certain laws that disallowed its export from Japan, and Sony had to obtain special permission to export their video game console out of the country. Of course, that's pretty silly, as you never hear anything of the like about consoles that came afterwards, such as the PlayStation 3. The more sinister idea comes from the idea that Hussein was a cartoonish supervillain, and if he wanted a bunch of PlayStation 2 consoles, well, it must be for something bad. This led to an infamous news story by the website WorldNet Daily, or WND. WND claimed that the reason Hussein was buying up all the consoles was because Iraqi military scientists could somehow wire them together into a primitive sort of supercomputer which could be used to pilot unmanned aircrafts, launch missiles, remotely detonate biological weapons, or be used to develop new and more dangerous weapons. The website's claim is initially skeptical, but then it provides quotes from unnamed experts, claiming that by bundling together as few as 12 PlayStation 2 consoles, you could have enough computer power to control an unmanned aircraft. Most of the quotes crow the power of the PlayStation 2 console, going on and on about how powerful it is. It's basically a toy, but it's so awesome that in the wrong hands it could be dangerous. WND claims that Hussein chose PlayStation 2 consoles over the superior computers that were already on the market due to a number of factors, including size and weight, as well as getting around sanctions on the transport of computers in the Middle East. So, is there truth in any of this? Well, here's what I have to wonder aloud. If you could use 12 PlayStation 2 consoles to launch a missile, what could you do with that many PlayStation 3 consoles? Blow up the world? It seems odd that the PlayStation 2 alone has been singled out for this story. I mean, obviously it was the newest console at the time, but you never really see it repeated with the newer consoles. I also find it suspect how much the article seems to be about advertising the PlayStation 2. It sounds like the quotes about the system specifications came right from a Sony marketing rep. Just remember, we never found any WMDs in Iraq, and we didn't find a supercomputer made out of 4,000 PlayStation 2 consoles either. There has never been a shred of hard evidence that the PlayStation 2 can even do these things, much less that Saddam Hussein ever even expressed any interest in the console at all. Even buying a few dozen as a gift doesn't make much sense. It's not like they have GameStop in Iraq, and if you only ever hear about the consoles being imported, never the games. Incidentally, Iraq falls within the PAL region, meaning that if Iraqis were to import their video games from anywhere, it would likely be from Europe, not Japan or America. But perhaps the most damning bit of evidence against the story is simply the source, WorldNet Daily. WND describes itself thusly: a fiercely independent news service created to capitalize on new media technology and opportunities to reinterpret the role of the free press as a guardian of liberty, an exponent of truth, and an uncompromising disseminator of news. If you can't tangle past that bit of wordplay, let me spell it out for you. A cursory look at the website today, in 2011, reveals a headline claiming that we're heading into another Great Depression, another one claiming it can help you protect your money from government predators, an article claiming that there is an approaching event that could change our country overnight, which incidentally leads to a video claiming to be controversial and possibly offensive, but is nothing more than an advertisement for an investment firm. That page also operates a script that makes it difficult to leave the website. Also on the front page are several articles that question whether or not President Obama was born in the United States. Articles about President Obama being a racist, and articles about how President Obama is a Muslim. Guys, I don't like him much either, but it doesn't take a lot of brain power to quickly lump this website in with the likes of Alex Jones and Ann Coulter. I'd say they're nutcases, but that would be an insult. They know exactly what they're doing. Many of the articles on the website's front page are actually advertisements which look exactly like the links for news and are even marked as deals of the day or special offers. They're the worst sorts of conspiracy theorists, the ones that don't even believe in their own drabble but pander to people's fears to sell their products. If I need to make it any clearer now how much credit should be given to WorldNet Daily, one of their so-called exclusives claims to uncover a conspiracy by a team of radical Muslims who are dedicated to covering the Statue of Liberty in a burqa, complete with a bad Photoshop job that I won't even show you because looking at it might actually make you dumber. So, when you wonder about whether or not a now-deceased dictator of a hostile nation once brought thousands of video game consoles into the country with the end goal of using them to further his vendetta against mom and apple pie, just please, consider the source. And also one last thing, a personal request from me. Don't judge all Republicans by morons like the tarred bats at WorldNet Daily. Most of us aren't idiots. Well, join me next time and we'll examine the link between a timeless video game mascot and the dreaded F word. See you then.